I just want to finally endorse something that Mark said on racism, but I want to go a little bit further. Not just racism, sexual harassment and social media. I've been put onto a task force for sexual harassment with the TUC, and it was after the GMB report came out that said that that trade union had real problems with women not being able to go through the ranks of being local officials, national officials, and so forth, because there was a systemic stoppage of that. Now, if anybody's in any denial on sexual harassment, even in the PRA or the prison service, then they've buried their heads in the sand, because there is. And sometimes it gets explained as, it was just banter. Well, it's not banter to sexually harass anybody in any workplace. And I'll be putting systems in place for my own workforce in relation to making sure we've got model rules that protects people at work in the PRA, because I can't insist with the different employers that we have if things aren't in place in our own trade union. And it's the same for racism. I've fought discrimination all my working life since the age of 16, and I will continue to do that as long as I've got a breath in me. And I've been criticised, as has Mark, for stuff that's appeared on our official PRA website, Facebook page, not that I use Facebook or anything like that, and I'll come to that in a second. But the reality is, you only have to look at the Code of Conduct database to realise that racism is alive and kicking in the prison service. Sadly, some of our members have been sacked because they're racist. And recently, we expelled a branch official for being racist towards a female PRA member. And incidentally, that PRA member, the victim, had to move jails to get peace. That isn't correct. So no one will ever look at me in the eye and say that racism doesn't exist. I'll take you back to 1993, when we expelled a guy from Wandsworth called Christopher Hopewell. This union expelled him. The prison service continued to employ him. And I was looking over those papers the other day. And yes, we've come a long way for women and for black and minority ethnic members. But when I sit at a train station talking to some of my members, black members, that have been racially abused in the workplace and targeted by unscrupulous managers, I will not take a step backwards in defending them. And of course, the branch official who has been openly targeted because he's made a stand against racism. And I want the prison service not to just sign joint statements with me and the national chairman against racism, but to mean it, because we mean it. And I don't mind anybody abusing me on social media, because I know where I've come from and I know where I'm going. And the reality is, when I worked at Chelmsford, people used to wear National Front badges behind their ties. And they used to dig out black prisoners, subtly, not sending them to education, not sending them to PE, because they were racist. And I used to unlock them and send them. And then when the then area manager, because they used to monitor how many black people used to go to education and PE and workshops, and because I was on the Race Relations Committee, I used to do the audits. And he pulled me one day, back in the 90s, early 90s, and said, There's not enough black people in the stats going to education or PE or workshops. I went, are you asking me to fiddle the figures? So let's not pretend. We've got a long way to go as a prison service and POA as well. And that's why, together, we will succeed in making the POA the union of choice for black people, ethnic minorities, gay, lesbian, and women. And I was so pleased going to branch official training and seeing so many young women at branch official training, knowing that our future in the POA is in very safe hands. But we're going to revamp some of our committees to make sure that there's a gender balance and that there's black people on it as well, so that they can tell us. There's no point in me going along, and this is what we used to do. We'd go to a black workers' conference and send white people as delegates. We'd turn up at the women's TUC with male delegates talking about female issues. I would much rather women were doing that at the TUC. Women shouldn't be just there at conference and a few of them. I want women to play an active part along with black people going forward, showing proper representation so that everybody feels comfortable in our trade union. And together, we're going to do that, and we're going to achieve that, and we're going to have the business plans going forward, and we're going to revamp our committees, equality committees and different things, the welfare committee, retired members committee, so that there's a cross-section of people on it. So I hope that you're with me on that, as I know that you are, because you're decent people, because it's a decent thing to do. And I will never, ever walk on the opposite side of the road when I see discrimination in full force. And I will always challenge it, whether it makes me popular or not, because it's not a popularity contest. It's about doing the right thing. Thank you very much.